Hello everyone. In this video, I will show you how you can develop an innovation strategy using a combination of visual text network analysis, GPT-3 and ChatGPT. We will be using as an example the field of data science, and I will show you how you can get data from different sources, analyze the content, and then generate some really interesting ideas that can help you move this field further using visual text network analysis and GPT-3. So keep watching to learn how it works. First of all, you will need to import some data. In our case, the first example is the feedback of the customers. So in that particular instance, it's the data scientists who provided open survey responses on the website called Kaggle, where they talk about the problems that they experience. And this is a great way to start. You want to understand what the current problems are. And if you don't know how Nodus works, it basically takes all the responses, which I imported as a spreadsheet CSV file, and every word in this response is visualized as a node. And then if the words are used together in the same context, like for example here, finding relevant set, they're used in the same context a lot because this is one of the problems for data scientists. They will be shown next to each other on the graph, and they will also have the same color because they belong to the same topic. And you see the topics here on the right in the analytics panel. So that allows you to see what are the main topics contained inside the answers, which clusters they form. So here you have the names of the clusters also shown on the graph, which are generated by GPT-3. And also the bigger nodes are the ones that are more influential in the data set. So actually, already now we can see what the main problems are just through this visualization. It took maybe a few seconds to do that. So you can see that the main topics are poor quality of data. Here is shown as the pink color on the graph. Machine learning, something about machine learning. Questions, then pre-processing is a big problem. So basically poor quality of data and also pre-processing this data or how they are pre-processed. Data cleaning is another problem, and also web scraping. So now we understand the problems that people are having. And a great way to begin in this case is to basically try to see if you can develop those ideas further. So for example, here I could say, okay, I'm focused on data cleaning. Let's zoom in and see what kind of problems people have. If you don't want to see GPT-3 topics, just click here to switch them off. Okay, data cleaning. So for example, time, cleaning, and large. So we can select these three nodes, and then we can see in which context people were using these terms. And here we see that they talk a lot about cleaning, that takes a lot of time that it takes to clean the data. So once we have this insight, we can write it down in the project notes. It takes too much time to clean the data. This is one of the problems. We save it into our project notes because later we can analyze it. Okay, then we deselect this topic, zoom out, go to the poor quality of data. And here we see what this poor quality is about already by just looking at the notes. So I can see that, for instance, there is incomplete documentation. This is one of the problems. And here I can see in which context it's used. So I can say poor quality of data, incomplete documentation. Okay, save this. Let's see if there is anything else interesting. I can deselect those selected nodes and click on something else. For example, dirty, error, dirty, lots of errors. So errors in the data, dirty data, a lot of noise. Okay, a lot of noise in the data. And I can actually say that these nodes are the problems that data scientists have. And as you can see, I'm basically starting from the problems that they have. So I will go through each of these topics step by step, understanding a little bit the specifics of each particular cluster. I will not do this right now to just make this video shorter, but basically it's already very clear that it's about data cleaning, web scraping, poor quality of data. So it's not the actual algorithms, but rather the actual data that you get is the big problem. So I wrote it down here. Okay, maybe something else, maybe how to get the data. Web scraping is difficult. Okay, so I added this as a note, and now I have the main problems that these people are having. Let's zoom out for a moment and remind ourselves that we're thinking about some kind of innovative strategy that we could develop in the field of data science. Let's say we have a company which is catering to data sciences, and we want to understand what direction we should steer our services. And in that case, I understand that, for instance, if I offer a way for people to access really good data, then it could provide some really interesting added value to them, right? This I did just by analyzing the graph. I can also use the built-in GPT-3. So for example, if I go here to AI Insights and let's reset everything, I can actually ask GPT-3 to generate interesting research questions that would bridge different ideas that are already existing in this text in a new way. So for example, here I would say it's asking me what pre-processing techniques are necessary to access and meaningfully interpret the business data needed to make a complete and interesting set of findings relevant. Okay, so maybe pre-processing techniques. I can actually just modify this response, save it to my notes automatically. Okay, then generate some more interesting responses. If I don't like this connection, I can just skip to the next advice, and see some new interesting questions. If I don't want questions, let's say I want ready-made answers, I can also do that. I can just go and directly use the ideate function, which is usually coming up with some kind of business ideas in relation to this topic. So if I click here, the idea would be to create project-based learning tool that uses machine learning algorithms to identify and fill in incomplete, missing, or low-quality documentation and information from a variety of sources. Users could upload their own documents and source variables to build an individual model to help them better understand it. Okay, I mean, this is a ready-made business idea, some kind of platform, a learning tool that fills in the missing data for you. Maybe not through machine learning algorithms, but maybe it takes this data from the outside and adds it in. So I'm going to save it to notes. And we have another idea here, which is to format the data in a good way. So let's save it into notes as well. So as we iterate a few times through this AI Insight functionality, it's going to try to connect different clusters of the graph together. If we want, we can also use Gap Insights feature here in the analytics panel on the right. And what it does is that it highlights the gaps that it finds in the network and then tries to propose you a connection between them. So for example, in this case, let's reiterate through a few of them. Maybe here, machine learning, poor quality. Okay, we already analyzed this. Kaggle questions, let's say big problem and pre-processing data. So if we want to connect these two clusters together, AI Insight question, and then GPT-3 is going to generate a question that would link those two topics together. So this is how you could approach this particular discourse and think, okay, here it's asking what tools are available for businesses to access and pre-process meaningful features, understanding and learning about. So maybe just which tools to actually pre-process data. Let's add it and we can conduct marketing research on this topic. So as you can see, as I go along, I can reiterate through the structural gaps, reveal some interesting ones. If I click here, it's going to generate some set of questions. If I don't want a set of questions, I want the answers, I can also click AI Bridge the Gap button, and then it's going to generate an idea that would bridge those two together and help me develop a strategy for this particular context. And the relevancy of this strategy is based on the fact that we're touching upon the topics that are important and relevant because they already exist inside the discourse, but we're connecting them in a new way. We're finding the gaps and bridging them with the ideas that GPT-3 is generating, or we get inspired by those ideas and come up with some interesting insights that we could integrate into this market. And here it's proposing me an idea to think of a platform that allows individuals to quickly and easily format their time cleaning, their data. Maybe this is how we can fix that. So as you can see, don't rely on GPT-3 to come up with all the answers, but if it comes up with something interesting, why not? Let's save it into the graph. Another cool feature is that you can actually switch to GPT 3.5 or 4 mode, and this is basically what ChatGPT is using. And you can query this text in a chat format. So you need to turn this on, and then I can say like, okay, what would be the best possible solution that would solve the data scientist's problem of not having clean data and having no documentation of data and no time to process it. We save it into the graph. What happens here is that Nodus is querying ChatGPT. It's sending it the sort of extract of this text as well as the main topics that it identified using graph analysis. So this is much more precise than other tools that you would get. And then it proposes you to think of how you could then solve this problem. So here it says, generally speaking, hiring more personnel, using tools, automated cleaning and labeling software, prioritizing data sets based on their completeness and accuracy could be useful when determining which ones should be processed first with limited resources. So here it's proposing me to think of some solutions. It does it in a slightly generic way, so I can direct its output and ask it to be, can you please be more precise and tell me what kind of tools we could imagine that would solve this. Okay. And here I'm improvising, so I rely on GPT to provide a response. And if you want something a bit less generic, choose GPT-4. It's slower, but it's going to come up with some really interesting stuff. But here, even GPT 3.5 Turbo model is coming out with some data labeling and collaborative cloud-based platforms that facilitate communication. So here it gives me an idea, and this is again like a good way to use it is not to rely on it fully to provide you the final answer, but to rather see what kind of ideas it's activating. So it's like having a sparring partner in a conversation, right? And here I think, okay, actually it's giving me an idea to have a platform, to exchange data sets that would be rated not by how often they're used, but rather by their quality, and maybe also curated data sets. I'm just writing this as an idea, saving it into the graph. Maybe it's a bit like Kaggle, the resource that exists, but perhaps there is also space for more, and even also some tools like ChatGPT mentioned before, tools to clean and label data better. Save it here. And then once you run through a few iterations like this, what you can do is then generate a summary using the AI of all your notes, or even generate an outline, which would generate like an article outline. You could also copy this in your clipboard and then visualize a new graph using it, or you could download it as a text file and develop it into some kind of strategy or a presentation if you want. So here it says, it gives us a summary about the issues that data scientists face, and that it suggests an idea of a platform to exchange data sets that would be rated by their quality. So it provided a pretty good summary of all my notes. I'm just going to save it into the notes so I can have it for future reference. So this is how you would think about a strategy using the problems that users are having. Another way to think about a strategy is to approach it from a completely different direction and to rather look into the scientific research. If you go to the analytics, into the apps page of Nodus, then you can go to scientific discourse, and then you can use Google Scholar search to find some stuff about data science cleaning data. Let's see what research exists on this topic. What happens here is that Nodus imports the results for the search query of data science cleaning data, okay, and then it presents them as a graph where the words that you use are the nodes and the co-occurrences are the connections between them. And once you represent it this way, you can quickly see what is the current research on the subject somehow. What are the main topics that they're talking about? So for example, here, what catches my eye, and in this way, actually visual analysis is really important because it can help you to really quickly get to the parts that are surprising for you. So for example, survey. I didn't think that survey was a big topic here in the research, and we see that the user survey, that a lot of the scientific articles are actually talking about surveys and how they rely on surveys to identify the problems that people are having. So for me, this would give me an idea that maybe there could be also a service that would not rely on surveys, but on something else, like for instance, using the user stats or understanding a little bit better, you know, some kind of tagging tool where you could tag the data that are low quality and so on, right? So detecting things that are unusual on the graph is really helpful to help you understand how to approach this topic. And here the word clean is quite big, so I'm going to hide it and see what's happening underneath, and then look at some words that I find interesting. For instance, balance tests. Okay, so balance testing is quite an important topic, and then I can click those two and even Google it from inside Nodus. And here I can see that, okay, this is more in the context of healthcare, so I can actually edit the query in data science and make it a bit more precise. Balance tests. So okay, so this is some specific approach that we can use for ensuring that the quality of the data are big. So we can save it into the nodes and later connect it to the problems that we identified in the previous iteration of analyzing data sciences problems, and add this information into this stack of ideas that we have. So for instance, in this case, it means that maybe this is like a specific methodology that we would use inside our platform, that we would provide balance testing tools. Then we can look into something else. Let's say if I don't want to visually analyze the graph, I can also click here or there and use GPT-3 to generate topics for the research. And I see that, for instance, visualization is a big topic, which is interesting for me. So I'm going to choose this topic and click on some nodes and see if there is anything that could be relevant for me in relation to this. Okay, so visualization tools could be interesting offering, like you visualize the data sets in some way to showcase their quality to the customers. So that could be another idea, because this is happening in research. And maybe we can zoom into something else and, for example, see some research on dirty data sets, right? And by the way, if you want to find more articles on this topic, you can just dataset dirty research scholar and then use Google to find some interesting results on this topic. And here you have the links and even some tools already that that can be used to clean this data and to address this problem. So as you can see, we first looked at the problems that people had, identified the gaps in them, generated some interesting ideas. Then we look at the scientific research on the topic. If you want, you can also look at, for instance, I have a good example here of how you can analyze a certain market. This is not about data science, but it was from Hannover Messe, which was on automation and 3D printing. And I just visualized descriptions of the main tracks, the main topics that they have at this conference, right? So then I can quickly understand what this conference is about. I can reveal high-level ideas. So I can also understand what the market is talking about using this approach, right? I can see that they're talking a lot about innovative automation, digital transformation, robotics, and climate efficiency. So this is interesting to me because I understand very quickly that the hot topics inside the industry are sustainability and digital transformation. So software, even though we're talking about automation and 3D printing, where I would think there could be more topics on manufacturing, on materials and so on. But no, even there, software and sustainability are still big topics. And if I was developing a strategy in this direction, I would integrate those ideas inside. If I wanted to find gaps in here, I could also highlight them in the network and then, find some interesting connections that haven't been made before using my own imagination just by looking at the graph, or GPT-3 functionality, which generates a research question or an idea that would bridge those topics together. So this is how you would approach it. First of all, analyzing the problems that people have, scientific research on the subject, and then some content from conferences. You could also take websites of competition and so on. So you understand the customer, you understand what's going on in science, you also understand what's happening in the market. Then you identify the main ideas that exist currently, and then you just try to connect them in a new way, and you also try to develop beyond the periphery of those ideas. And this is why graphs are so helpful, because they allow you to quickly see some interesting patterns, and they also allow you to see how you can rewire these new patterns in new ways. And this is what innovation is often about, is when you have to connect those ideas in a way that haven't been done before. So I hope you find it interesting. Try it out with infranodus.com, and also I will leave a comment and also in the description to this video I will leave a link to the article that explains this process in more detail if you would like to follow it through. And don't forget that you have the workflow here on the right that guides you through all the steps of analysis that you can perform on your graphs. Thank you.